if you had elections, they've said it's got to be a democratic, sovereign Palestinian state. If there were elections today or next year or whatever, Hamas would win the elections. So do we want to hand a Palestinian state over to Hamas?
Colonel Richard Kemp, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Stephen.
I want to ask about Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer's decision to recognise Palestine as a state. Is this the right thing to do?
Well, the first thing to say is that Palestine as a state does not exist. So recognising it is actually doing nothing, and it will change nothing in terms of the potential creation of a Palestinian state or anything like that. And I think we need to understand why that both of these leaders and other world leaders have decided to do this. For example, the Prime Minister of Canada, who's got the same plan in mind, even if he hasn't yet announced it. And that's in order to appease their members of their electorates and their political support.
Hello there, how are you all doing? First of all, I just want to thank all of you that sent me messages about my condolences about my grandfather recently passing. It was very, very nice of you all to do that. It's very much appreciated. Some things have come to light with him though that have been a surprise to me and my cousin. So started looking into his old service records from World War II, not World War II, from his time in the Navy just after World War II, and other things, just to learn a bit more about him, I think, more than anything else. The next thing though, it's about some about the things that have been happening lately. First of all, and I can't believe I'm having to say this, right? It's ridiculous, but I'm not advocating for a civil war. I'm not trying to ginny up people to try and instigate something like this. This is just, it's purely a warning, and it always has been with me. But lately I've been seeing a quite high level colonel in the British Army, which you may be seeing in the background, just footage from an interview he did. I'll play a couple of clips shortly of an interview he did with GB News, where he was talking about the situation in the UK is getting dire. And that's because it is. The thing is, people are talking about civil conflict in the term that in the frame of it being right against left, or globalist against nationalist, or Islamist against, and the leftists against everyone else. And that's not the way I see it. Of course, this may actually be the result. If you listen to people like Dr. David Betts, or even that Colonel, or even another channel called British Landor. It's not the Islamists or the leftists that are the problem. Yes, they're a nuisance. Yes, they do. They are, I suppose, they're more a symptom of the problem, of the actual cause, more than anything else. A cause, a symptom, and a willing tool, like many other things. I can mention. Our enemy, at the end of the day, is no ifs, no buts. Our own leadership, our own government, our own pockets behind the leadership that we supposedly elected. They're the instrument, the root of the problem. Or rather, it's what's behind them that is the root of the problem. And this, again, as always, goes back to the old deception industrial complex. The intelligence agencies, the intelligence services, or rather the rogue elements within them. They are not paid by Israel, as many people would like to cry foul of. And we'll get back to that in a minute, because that's another aspect of this that we need to discuss, especially when it's to do with tactics. But it's the rogue elements that are within our intelligence agencies that are forcing to themselves, or they are now. Anyway, in the interest of time and me sounding like a stuck record and repeating myself, we'll gloss over all this part, and we'll get to the meat and bones, what I'm trying to say. And the reason why I'm making this video. You see, I've been watching some really good content by some amazing creators on YouTube that are showing a real grasp and a real feel for what's going in the UK in a very honest and heartfelt way. One of those is a channel called Vindicator that I've actually watched for a very long while. And for some reason, I think it was like me, he got banned and then restarted his channel. He's also had some things in his personal life that were really unjustified. That also, I think, stops him from making content for a while. And another guy called Dino Bane, who's another very good channel, and another one I highly recommend. Who is also not one of the usual suspects you'd probably come across. And another guy, a friend of mine, called Ashley Styles. All of them aren't relatively large channels, not very, very large channels. Actually, this is quite small and it deserves a lot more. But out of the four of us, Dino Bane's probably got the largest reach. Anyway, all of us have been seeing pretty much the same thing and saying the same thing. We may have differing opinions on what the actual root cause of the problem is, but we all can see what's what. And this is at no side. No side, no political side. Left or right. Is valid for it, or even competent enough, or even honest enough, or courageous enough to be in a leadership role. In fact, the closest that we have is Ben Habib. And I don't really trust him either. No Rupert Law, but at least they're saying the right things. We're beyond left and right. Leftist, rightist, far right, far left. Communist, fascist, blah 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 blah. All the isms and ists and istophobes. All that's gone. Beyond that now, it's just national or global. You're either for the nation or against the nation. You're either for sovereignty or against sovereignty. It's no longer an either or issue, rather one or the other. We're one incident away from explosion. And I see countless examples of what are potential trigger points all over social media, all directed at the immigrants. Rightly so, don't get me wrong. But it's amazing how much it's ramping up. You have the Ricky Jones verdict, the man who said he wanted to off all the fascists in a rather bloody way. Fascist meaning anyone who isn't a Labour voter and isn't pro-immigration. Honestly, these people have no idea what the word fascist means, but anyway. Or Nazi. Even though they call it. After that verdict, I think we're at the point now where all gloves are off, unfortunately. Where now the reality of the two-tier system that we live under is stark and present and there. Everybody's noticing it. This, of course, is a good thing, obviously. However, this talk of civil war comes back to the fore. Almost like it's being pushed. I've always said, this is the intent, this is the intention, what the system, at the end of the day, wants. Wants civil conflict between themselves, so they can swoop in and give us the solution to end the madness. You can see them pushing to that point, pushing us towards that goal. Which brings me to the next thing. that also may not have had that intent behind it, but it's been framed to have that sort of intent behind it. And that's a tweet by Middleton, who is the former SBS man who was made famous in that SAS Are You Tough Enough series. Some channel or other, I can't remember which one. I'll put a picture of the tweet in the background now. This isn't, I don't think this is a coup d'etat like what a channel called British Landwehr is claiming he's saying is actually what Middleton is saying. What he's saying is that we now have a moral obligation to not abide by the rules of a justice system. That is completely antithetical to the concept of justice. Justice, of course, was, and always should be blind. It's no longer blind. It's like it's got its blindfold lifted on one side of its, on one eye, or off of one eye and pointing towards one direction, while still blind to the other. She's peeking, therefore cheating. Sneaky bitch. Anyway. I think that's what he's saying. And his speech at Tommy's rally will likely go along those same sort of lines. I think it won't be the call for a coup d'etat. British Landwehr was very quick to jump upon. Can't work out whether that's just through naivety or just deliberate. He's, after all, a very young chap. Which brings me to the next thing that I noticed. How many of you have noticed that when someone is talking about anything to do with Muslim immigrants, illegal immigrants, of any shape, way, shape or form, or whatever they're doing, don't matter what it is, how many of you have noticed that instantly, even though it's nothing to do with the actual original premise of whatever you're watching, reading in the comments or whatever post you're reading the replies to those posts, very quickly it suddenly turns to Gaza and Israel.
Hearts, Rupert, more malicious altruism. This is wonderful news, but 50 is not enough. Hopefully we have children from Gaza. Hopefully we have children from Gaza. Well, that's a very personal, it's a very personal preference. I don't think you should be shouting that out. They need help and treatment. This was a weird one. It's a weird one, Zara. But anyway, true colours right there. Another foreigner.
Stop that.
Abu Abed. This isn't about Gaza. You're very honest. It seems so. It is about supporting a bunch of baby murderers. We have got it. Justice will prevail. I don't know which side he stands, honestly. Could be either. It's kind of a spicy. It's turned into a very singular topic here. When will you call out Israel's role in driving these refugees to Europe and the UK? Interesting. It started off talking about Palestinian children, and it seems to have switched somehow or somewhere in this reply thread to be very against a certain... Oh, there we go. That's what the kids look like. Maybe. I don't know. It could be staged. I have no idea. No one knows anything, and that's the point. I do know that's what our cities look like, though. After 30 years of the third world invading our countries, we now have car barriers. Anti-terrorist car barriers everywhere across our major cities, because apparently diversity, although it's a strength, it does come with some big fucking side effects.
And immediately there's a massive argument ensuing in those comments. Something I've mentioned before is the tactics used by the intelligence agencies, particularly on social media, that they use to discredit certain posts or stifle conversation or discredit someone's ideas, and they'll use racism and anti-Semitism or just racism of any kind to steer people away from that conversation, or steer people away from the person making the post, or make them look like an absolute racist. And it only takes one post, just one, not skillfully but well-timed post in a comment thread to swing everyone else in one direction, arguing about that one sort of conflict in the Middle East all the time, every time. You'll notice it. You'll notice it. If you turn your emotional hat off, your emotional head, leave out of the door and look through the comments, and you'll notice just one post, that's all it'll be, and it'll be just out of nowhere, and it'll start talking about that, and it'll trigger everyone else off. And when it seems to be waning, that argument, all of a sudden it'll boil up some more from another very well placed, well timed post, almost like someone's fanning the flames from the outside, and it feels like that because they are. This type of tactic they're now using as well, in the same way that they use it against the supposedly jihadist movement. And that's to entrap you, to make you make a comment that they know will get you looked at by the police, or give the police an excuse to come and take a look at you. And they'll do it because they trigger your emotions. What better way to make someone say something stupid and a little bit racist, especially in this climate, than Israel-Gaza? Said countless times, and no one listens to me, but I'm not going to stop saying it. Israel-Gaza is a psyop. Look up a Twitter account called Gazawood, Gazawood All one word. And it shows you how Hamas manipulate not only figures but create videos supposedly portraying people in bombed out areas. Aren't in bombed out areas. Right next door to that bombed out area is a restaurant that's open. Starving people are in this bombed out area, yet the restaurant next door is selling food to perfectly healthy looking Gazans. Everyone is being played on such a massive, emotionally triggering level, it is unbelievable, and no one is even aware, hardly. You need to leave your bias at the door, which barely anyone does. No one thinks critically anymore, they just act on emotion and react on emotion, and that's exactly what they want, because it masks everything else that they're doing. The Israel-Gaza situation is used religiously and has been used religiously for decades now, because they know it triggers certain people with a certain mindset on either side, and they drag everyone else into it. So from now on, don't jump to reply to somebody online. Don't react to somebody online in comments or on X. Think about what you're saying. Think about what you're doing. Use facts. Cite sources. Preferably their own, because they do actually tell you the truth quite a lot. It's just that people tend to not trust it because, well, it's from one side or it's from the other. Get that out of your head as well. We get told the truth more times than you think, and we just dismiss it because it comes from an opposition side or someone that we don't particularly, or a nation that we don't particularly like. You need to get that out of your heads. Start pulling information, learning how propaganda works, what kinds of propaganda there are, because there's not just one type of propaganda, there's several. Learn not only who is your engineered friends, your engineered heroes, as many of you like to do, and barely any of you have any kind of understanding of, to be honest. But learn who your engineered enemies are as well, because that's a concept that many of you can't or don't even know of, or refuse to. Not only are we giving heroes to leaders, we're also giving enemies to get those heroes in the first place. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. See you later.
That's straight across the board. Everybody in the right wing agrees about that. You take politics out of the equation and everybody on the right is united. And that's a fact. We are literally united on every single aspect of that. This is why I've abandoned politics, because it's divisionary, it's tribalistic. It stops us achieving our full potential because we're too busy arguing over who's the best to represent us in Parliament. And the truth of the matter is, Parliament for the time being is completely irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It really is. Any political solution, like I keep saying, is 4 years away. So Parliament at the minute is completely irrelevant. Fair enough, let the leaders of the parties argue amongst themselves about who's the best. But the people like me and you, we're on the right, and we are on the right side of history as well. That's what it should be. We're on the right side of history. We're all united in what we want. We all want these illegal immigrants booted out of the country and sent back to where they came from. We want our prisons emptied of all these foreign jihadists. Just deport them, get rid of them. We want our societies, our communities protected by our law enforcement. We want equal representation in the law, not this two-tier justice system that's been created since Tony Blair got into power. That's what we want. We're all united on all these issues. The only thing that divides us at the moment is when it comes to politics and which party is the best to represent us in Parliament. That's irrelevant. Forget about that. It's completely irrelevant.